Well, hello there, Jonathan.
Hello, John Hicks. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. How's your day going?
It's going pretty well. I'm always excited when I talk to political candidates. Jeff Young, I just finished talking to Jeff Young for maybe about 2.5 hours, and I think he really appreciated it because I sat and listened to his views and his ideas as if, like, you know, he's a person, like he matters, you know, instead of just sort of going for the sensational stuff. And yeah, I liked that. It was pretty interesting. Actually, your name came up in the conversation because he was sitting there saying that Edelin and Brashear are corrupt because they don't hold fair primaries. They don't have, I guess they're not letting him go to the debates, and they've just been ostracizing him. So he says that if they got elected, that he would vote for you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Okay, well, it's certainly good to hear. I can use all the support I can get. Yeah, I'm kind of, it's going to be interesting to see how the primaries work out. You know, we've already had our primaries. We don't get taxpayer finance primaries, so we had to hold ours in conjunction with our convention back in March.
Oh, interesting. How many candidates were running?
I don't know how many of us were contending, but I emerged as the consensus, I think. Most of the Libertarian activity is on the local level, so running a statewide candidate is a bit of a stretch for us, but we thought it was important this year to make it known that the Libertarian Party is here and thriving, and next year you're going to see a lot more candidates because we'll have a local elections, and we intend to be out there, and we're recruiting candidates this year for next year's races.
That's awesome. I think in our hearts as Americans, we're a four-party nation anyways. You're going to have your centrist, and you're going to have your more folks that say, no, we need fundamental, radical change. So I'm actually happy to see that your name's on the ballot.
Okay.
So, okay, I got, let's see, I got a little bit of biography here. I got some policy points, and then I want to just talk about the campaign in general.
Okay.
So you're a public school teacher. You, for 2 years, you worked for a community newspaper. You, let's see, live in Louisville. You graduated at Stetson University with a political science major. You're an IT technician. And you were drafted into the Vietnam War. Is all that right?
Yeah, let's go over that, and just to make sure we got our details. Details can be important. Yeah, taught for 2 years as a school teacher early on. Then I got into the IT industry after that, working for GE as a computer programmer. I don't call myself a technologist so much as a software developer, and those of us who've been in the field for how long think of us as generalists in the computer field, but different terms we can use, but more software development than anything else. And then after just a few years at GE, I quit that job and I actually founded my little community newspaper. That was in '76. I started a little newspaper called the Fern Creek Neighbor out in the Fern Creek neighborhood of southeast Jefferson County. And I was up for 10 years. Didn't make a nickel all the time, but it was a wonderful experience. Really a good education in how the world works.
Yeah, no, it's.
Then I got back into the IT industry.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool stuff. I was interested in you being drafted into the Vietnam War, so it kind of dates you a little bit. What's your? How do you feel about being drafted? How do you feel about the Vietnam War?
Well, I had ambivalent feelings at the time, but I felt like if I'm drafted, I need to do my duty. I think wars, most wars are needless. Our country has a bad reputation for meddling. I think communism would have fallen without we probably did more harm than good by intervening.
Yeah.
But I didn't make that decision, and I felt like, I felt like perhaps I was not the most informed person as a 20-something person, so I felt like I should serve and just make sure that I didn't do anything immoral while I was over there, and happily, I didn't have that with anything that
yeah, I got you.
my moral.
You're saying you're being a good soldier. I probably would have done the same thing. Now that you've been out of it, now you can kind of reflect upon it. The draft, they mostly did away with the draft, I think. Like for emergencies, it's still there. So would you say you're opposed to the draft today?
I oppose the registration, compulsory registration.
Okay. And then you're saying you question American foreign policy, which is, that's Ron Paul just endorsed, or I heard that he endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. We're in Somalia, we're in Niger, we're trying to do a coup d'etat in Venezuela, we're in Syria, we're all over the place. So.
Yeah. And again, that creates more harm than good. A lot of the justification for all of our, we have hundreds of bases all over the world. I guess part of the justification is to protect free trade, to keep trade lanes open. But I think we should be working to reducing the number of bases we've got. The problem is that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You know the old saying there.
Yeah.
When you've got a lot of military power, it's so tempting to use it. And it just seems like, if you look at history, when we use that power, we just create resentment, and that's created problems for us.
I feel we're trying.
And we read about our own fatalities in these wars, but we don't read about how many more fatalities there are by the people living in those countries.
Yeah, what was it, 4 million killed in Vietnam? The Vietnamese, 4 million?
I don't know the number, but it was a lot more than Americans.
Right. And I guess when I think about what could we do better instead of just, militarily dominating the entire world, to win hearts and minds, it seems like your idea should be able to stand up on its own without, with a gun pointing at the person. So it seems like we should just work on trying to win the war of ideas and not impose our will. Because I think you're
right. I think to put you on the ballot next year.
Yeah. I'm left libertarian, so I will probably agree on all the freedom issues, but I believe in some social spending.
So, well, I don't. You can talk about that. The devil's in the details there. I certainly don't believe in doing away with all of our social safety net. But I believe the fact that we've got so much of it is a sign that we've got deeper problems that we need to be addressing.
Well, I don't feel like we actually have a real social safety net. It seems like it's a patchwork, and so you have to be, disabled to get Social Security. You got to be old to get, Social Security. You got to be poor to get food stamps. So it's like here and there and everywhere. Whereas universal basic income, I don't know if you come across this idea, but Milton Friedman was in favor of it, and so it's universal basic income. So everybody gets $1,000 a month, and I love the idea because that eliminates poverty. And for libertarians, you could cut a lot of the other social programs out because I feel you're giving everybody a chance. And so what do you think about UBI?
Well, I think it's a really interesting idea, and I don't want to rule it out. I think we need to. There's always unintended consequences when you do something like this. Part of the idea is that it would mean doing away with all the patchwork, and that would be hard to. Every bit of the patchwork has a special constituency that would fight to retain it. So it would be very hard to implement. Also, it would create, it would change the nature of our economy to, well, depending on the second, I guess. But it would change the nature of the economy to a great extent. In many ways, I think it might be in a good way, but I don't think people realize how it would affect it. And basically, it would give us a strong incentive not to work, not to have a real job, which would have some advantages. You know, we'd have a lot more full rights and so forth, and people would be faced with the opportunity to live a much simpler life, which I think would be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it would drive up wages because people would be dropping out of the workforce. So that would be good for the people that do go to work.
Right.
But it would have an effect on costs, of course. Prices would go up, and so forth and so on. It's an interesting, fascinating economic question, you know, just what would happen. An economist could just go on for hours about all of it. You know, the economy is a complex system, and whenever you tinker with it, all sorts of gauges of views interact with each other, and all sorts of unexpected things happen. So I'm not really at all, but I'm skeptical. Let's put it that way.
No,
I do believe that we should be working towards. Part of the problem is that we've got this issue of inequity and equality, and it's a real issue, a fascinating issue. I'm reading an interesting, but we're going to get off the subject up for a while, but I'm reading a novel by Benjamin Disraeli called Sybil. I think he wrote it back in 1847 or something, but he's dealing with these very issues. It's fascinating. But part of the complaints about inequity are really, again, people are jealous of a lifestyle that really isn't worth being jealous of, you know? I mean, people want more bling-bling, and they're missing out on life along the way.
Yeah.
I think we would all do better to simpler lives. And it doesn't hurt me that somebody's richer than I am,
right.
In terms of money, you know.
Right.
So long as I'm free and living a little life I want to live. Now the problem, you know, there's a lot of people are trapped in poverty where they can't really, they're not free agents, you know. They can't actually act freely, even though they technically could be said to be free, because they're trapped in poverty with debt or a job they have to keep in order to feed their family and this, that, and the other. So these are the things we need to address. The best way to address it, I'm not sure, but I think working towards a freer society and a society where people are able to human flourishing, I guess, is our end goal, okay? And that means having a job that is gratifying.
Yeah.
And I think many of us get trapped in jobs that we feel like we have to do, but we're not enjoying it, and that's not good for anyone.
I came across this quote about poverty. You don't have time to think about investments and how to, you know, think about the bigger issues because you're too busy trying to get out of poverty, like you said, with the job, having the job. So Kentucky is one of the poorest states in the Union. 17%, I think, is the poverty rate for Kentucky.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm taking it to get your word, but I need to do my homework and
it's right.
You know, I think it's important to keep our eyes on the ball that human flourishing is what we're aiming for, and happy, good, gratifying lives where people are free agents is what we're aiming for.
So would you say you're a laissez-faire kind of view? You have a laissez-faire view on the economy? The free market?
Well, it depends on how you, I certainly am in favor of free markets. I mean, in terms of regulation, okay, part of the problem with the market system and with what people call capitalism is that it's not laissez-faire. That once someone gets a certain amount of power, they start institutionalizing their business by influencing government to give them favors, and that tends to drive out competition. So crony capitalism is the biggest problem we have. In terms of laissez-faire, I'm not such a purist that I certainly believe that we need to be sure that a fraud doesn't occur in the market, and that might require honest labeling. Sometimes I think it really gripes me that a lot of corporations advertising is misleading. I don't think we want to get into regulating free speech here, but there's an awful lot that can be done, I think, by harnessing public opinion to call corporations out when they're misleading the public.
Well, that's something we left libertarians and right libertarians absolutely agree on, is corporate welfare. What do we do? Corporate welfare, like, some maybe poor people should get welfare or not, but giving them to the corporations. So crony capitalism, like you were saying, are we really even a capitalist nation? Like, we're definitely against communism, but are we really embracing capitalism? Another example are yard sales. I don't really, unless you go to a big box store where everything's nice and clean, there's some exchange of money, but it seems like if we had a culture of capitalism, buying and selling would just be like, it would be all over the place. We would be doing it all the time. There's some places that make yard sales illegal, or you have to get a permit, and it's kind of like, you can't sell the stuff that's in your house, on your yard to whoever comes by. You're not allowed to do that. How are we capitalist if we're, not allowing that to happen? So then would you, if you're not pure laissez-faire, you said you believed in, I guess, some social safety net. Would you call yourself a socialist capitalist? Would you have a balance between the two?
Well, the words, both the words capitalist and socialist are, people define them, it's dangerous. Different people define them in different ways, so I kind of steer away from both words. I certainly am skeptical of. I think that cooperation and competition are both important.
Okay.
And I think one nice thing about the free market is that people think of it as competitive, but it's also one of the greatest ways to cooperate.
Oh, okay.
Because once you get past a small group of people, 50 or 100 people, it's really, the cooperation breaks down, and you need some sort of system to kind of orchestrate, okay, I need this, and you have too much of that, and how are we going to cooperate? Well, the market is really the best system we've got for cooperation on a large scale. So I'm social in that respect. I don't think that's what most socialists define socialism. I do believe that we should have more cooperative associations. I think I bemoan the fact that we've lost a lot of the old benevolent associations, the fraternal associations where people helped each other.
Yeah.
We still have the Masons, I think, and a few others, but used to be those who were very strong, and you actually, a lot of them in the, I think the 30s or so, you would go there. They would have a sick call every week where you would go there and there'd be a doctor that would look at you. Interesting thing is that the AMA didn't like that. Talk about corporate crony capitalism. The AMA didn't like the doctors working, at a flat fee for the benevolent associations. They cut that out. But more cooperation. I think that's good, and I think we're. Not only did we lose a lot of valuable institutions in the past, but we're not experimenting with new institutions. Our culture's changed an awful lot, just in our lifetimes, and it's changing more rapidly than ever before. And we're not trying new things. We're kind of falling into this trap of letting the government do everything. So I find. I've been involved in a few nonprofit organizations. I think we need to be experimenting with different types of organizations and see what works. It's one reason why I oppose the right to work law, which is something that not a lot of libertarians would agree with. But I think it's a mistake to say that an employer and a group of employees can't form a contract and work together.
That is free association.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked about it, essentially, I guess, my conclusion, I want you to think like me. I like balance, There's a saying about conservatives use a brain and liberals use their heart. We need both. We need to care and we need to be smart, and then there's, we need to change some things, we need to keep some things the same. When I look at Denmark, when I look at Germany's got a social safety net. They got universal health care, so much so that if you're stressed out, you could go to a 3-week spa, and so they got a social safety net. But then if you look at their GDP, they're one of the biggest capitalist powerhouses in the world. In Denmark, they're one of the happiest countries in the world, and they have a lot of social programs, but they also have a lot of wealthy people. And so when it comes down to having a good economy, what the Denmark folks have figured out is that a higher standard of living and an educated workforce are what these big CEOs, these corporations want. They want a high standard of living. They want to have a nice place to go, and then they want to have an educated workforce. They want to have smart folks to be able to run their machines. And when I think about Matt Bevin's economic plan, just to compare and contrast, it seems like it's just for the corporations. Get the taxes as super low as you can, make sure there's no regulations, and it's almost like the cheap labor, the poverty, the poor people, that's used as an incentive. Look at all these poor people you could go ahead and employ at your plant. And so it seems like it's the opposite way, whereas Denmark is sort of doing more of a better balanced way.
Well, I think Mr. Bevin's biggest problem is his mouth. He actually has some policies that have made sense. If you employ the poor folks, they're not going to get poorer. That's going to help them. If they're unemployed and they have a job, they're going to get better. One thing that he hasn't gotten any credit for, early on, one of the first things he did was one of the areas where he's worked a lot has been in job training and giving people job skills as opposed to higher education. So I'm running against the guy, and I want to get all the votes I can, but I don't want to be unfair to the guy. Yeah, no, it'd be totally fair. What grade would you give him? A, F, B, C? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know what you're asking, but I don't remember that you're there for that. Do you have a sense of, percentage-wise, he's got 60% of the stuff he has, or is it just kind of hit and miss? I like this, I like that, kind of just cherry picking? Well, in general, he's a lot of the things he's done have been for liberty. But his rhetoric is terrible. It's just like the same with Mr. Trump, you know. Yeah. I mean, the problem is, I think Trump is just putting on a show where Biden seems to really mean it.
I actually don't hate the rhetoric. I mean, I guess I have mixed feelings. I don't agree with the point that he's trying to make, but it's almost like they're mad that he's making a point. And it's like, oh, we didn't want to listen to you, and now you're making a point. I guess one comment he made about the had protests. There's teachers that were protesting, and then he was saying that who knows how many kids are being abused and sexually assaulted now that you did that. And I'm mixed about that issue because I feel like, yeah, maybe that's happening, but shouldn't parents be taking care of the kids? It shouldn't be, the school isn't the babysitter, right? That's not the job of the school. So he makes, his point is essentially go back to work, teachers, and so I think I get his point, even though I don't know if, you know, the rhetoric, I don't know. I don't hate it. I think he's getting kind of unfairly beat up by the media. It's like, oh, he just misspoke.
Absolutely. The media latches on, they started parsing his words, you know. They missed his point, and they started parsing his words. Where I think he made the mistake of saying, I guarantee you that
yeah.
when they were, you know, when the teachers were off. And then more recently he said that he referred to the 7-year-old that got shot.
Yeah.
And the media just completely missed his point and said, you know, and started, I don't get me started about the media.
So, is there any policies that he has done a lot. I mean, for being a pro-lifer, a lot of times you get all these promises and there's no delivery. He's got the heartbeat bill passed, and then the carry concealed, and let's see, there's a couple other right to work. He's passed some major pieces of legislation in the 3 years he's been in there.
Yeah.
What would you say about those 3 policies? Are there some policies that you don't like, or?
Well, you know, abortion is a real tough issue. I think it's not a left-right issue. And for libertarian, you know, we've got the rights of the right to privacy of the mother, and we've got the right to life of the fetus.
Yeah.
It's very tough there. And you know, my feeling is, first of all, I'm a little white man who's a bachelor, never married, and I don't have any kids. I probably should defer to. If we can have a referendum among, you know, where only females could vote, you know, but I don't think that would be constitutional. I think it's a moral issue to a great extent,
yeah.
And it's a slippery slope because at some point abortion definitely becomes infanticide, and we don't know where that point is. Different people disagree on where that occurs. At some point, obviously, government has to step in, but I think as a libertarian, we need to say, we need to be very, very careful about having the government intervene into private matters because it tends to overstep when it does.
I think it's a good diplomatic answer. I guess I'm a little frustrated because if people are saying just leave it up to the women, well, you need a man for the baby, right? You need if there's a kid there, a man was. So I'd like to. You know, it mostly is a woman's issue, but I think having the man in the picture too, I think his opinion about the thing matters as well.
Oh, sure. Yep.